And no, I'm just kidding.
No, I think you should still do it.
Do it.
No,
Let's do it all
was
together.
it was
On 3.
all right. 1, 2, 3. And
I don't know how long an and that's going to be.
Welcome to the first installment of Movies We Saw This Month on our Cinematary YouTube channel as well as the Patreon. We've come fresh out of retirement. It's been a whole month. Grace's computer died. Like, it's all falling apart
from disuse.
Yeah,
right.
Because we stopped the podcast. Grace's
atrophied and just wasted away.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to be back. It's been how have y'all felt for the month of not podcasting? I guess that has a different feeling for y'all than me.
On every episode, for me, it feels like I haven't been on the podcast in a while.
It does kind of feel like that. It has been nice to like not have to be keeping up with movies for the podcasts over the last month, and give me more time to kind of think about what the next phase of this is going to look like.
Are we talking about the next phase now, or is that an end of?
That's a good segue.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that we've mentioned this on a couple of occasions in, the episodes leading up to 500. But we are moving to being a seasonal show, kind of like podcasts like You Must Remember This do, where they go away for a long time and the host does a lot of research, and then they come back, maybe after being absent for months, and then they just kind of like drop week by week a several episode series that is like very well produced, right? And that's what we're trying to do with Cinematary post episode 500. And we're going to sort of trade off whose series it is, which has always kind of been the case behind the scenes at Cinematary. Pretty much every series we've done has been like the brainchild of somebody or another. But anyways, the first one we're going to be doing, I don't know if we've mentioned it on any podcasts before or not, but
we mentioned it in the news.
We mentioned in the news. You're following Cinematary as like a celebrity news item.
Yeah.
In the city of Knoxville, Tennessee, you would have seen that our next series is going to be about internet movies. Still workshopping the name if we want it to be called Internet Movies, if we have something snappier that we come up with between now and then. But essentially, this will be a series sort of curated by me that takes us through the history of the internet being depicted in film. And we're going to sort of start with the earliest depictions of just like computing at all on screen, which I think, as far as we know, the oldest would be Desk Set by Walter Lang. But somebody write to us if there's something else that we gotta include. And then we'll be sort of like moving through the decades that the internet has existed, and take note of trends in how our depictions of the internet have changed as our understanding and our experience of the internet has changed. I think it's a nice fit for a podcast that has kind of been existing on the internet for over a decade now. Like, any sort of content creation on the internet does sort of change your relationship to it, right? So I'm really excited to jump into all these movies. That format is going to be a little bit different as well. We won't all be talking about one singular movie, but different ones of us will kind of watch different things and sort of come back and add to a broader collective understanding of how the internet's been depicted in film. So yeah, who knows how long it may be between now and when that comes out. We're going to sort of work our own pace and make sure the episodes are really, really good. And then you'll get them when they're all done.
Yeah, we'll do an announcement like on the site and on social, and on we'll do something for like YouTube and Patreon and all that kind of stuff. Like, we'll get the word out and be like, internet movies, this is the title that we come up with, unless we don't. And then the thing I kind of want to do for folks listening, especially on the Patreon, is give you a kind of the syllabus that we're working from. So because I think the goal of it also is for people to follow along, because like Andrew said, like it'll be a weekly thing, more similar to how the podcast used to be. And this will give you, like, we'll announce it well ahead so then people can kind of watch the movies and kind of keep up with us.
We've done this in the past with the Avant-Garde series way back, where we had to like link people to movies and music videos as well. Like we had to just give people YouTube links. We obviously won't be able to do that with, widely distributed feature films, but we'll let you know what we're doing ahead of time.
We'll give you a list with where you can find them.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
Absolutely. Movies are great so far.
All right, well, let's get into movies that we saw this month. I think the big one that I know a number of us can talk about, and Grace is going to cover.
Did we mention that movies you saw this month is a Patreon thing now?
No, we didn't. This one is this one is free because we want to get the announcement out, and we also want to get people. We want to hook people in,
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a Patreon exclusive moving forward. The episodes, like the series that Andrew was talking about, that'll be as you find it anywhere else. But if you would like to join the Patreon to get these are just to kind of, expel our thoughts about movies that we've seen recently. And so
they got to go somewhere.
And so we're gonna be putting them on the Patreon. Y'all, you can give us $1 a month. Like, it's fine. If you really like this,
$2 a month.
You could give us more.
You can give us more, but like
the joke, $50,000 a month tier.
Yeah, or we'll come to your house and do a podcast.
Yeah,
we'll watch a movie with you.
I want to come to the house when it has enough money to $50,000 on a podcast.
You give us $50,000, we'll come. We'll fly to wherever you are, or drive. We'll come to your house. We'll watch the movie, and then we'll do a podcast for you. How about that?
Zach can do that.
Group effort.
It's just a date with Zach.
Yeah,
you're signing up.
With a date with Zach Dennis.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Nancy.
Nancy's like, good luck. He's gonna monopolize the conversation with bits. I think that's everything that we need to do.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. Let's get into movies.
All right, we're gonna lead it off with the new Wes Anderson movie, The Phoenician Scheme. Andrew, do you want to introduce this one?
I feel like I've just talked a lot.
Okay.
So how would one of y'all like to introduce it? Michael, Zach?
I'll introduce it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So this is the new feature film from Wes Anderson. His first output, I believe, since the Netflix Roald Dahl shorts. Is that correct? And his first feature film since Asteroid City a couple years ago. And this one stars Benicio del Toro as like what is he? He's basically like a criminal, like capitalist.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
he is like, this is set in like, I think the 1950s. Is that correct? Or 1940s?
I have no idea.
It's set in the mid-century at a time in which most of the world is still kind of colonized by Western capitalism, but is beginning to kind of like agitate for new stuff. And
it's kind of like post World War II Middle East.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. And I mentioned that because specifically, like, the Phoenician Scheme has to do with basically like Benicio del Toro has like one last job, right? Like before basically his past catches up with him. And this one last job is shoring up this like huge dam infrastructure project, something that's going to enrich a whole bunch of people. And the people it's going to enrich, he has to basically convince to invest in this project, or else the project can't come through, right? So he's got to go through all this like kind of like back room, like convincing to get all these like various like stupidly wealthy people who are in some ways connected to the vast like network of like global capitalism and Western powers at the time. He's got to convince them all kind of individually to invest in this Phoenician scheme. At the same time, he is being monitored by like a coalition of governments who really don't like how he is like, a private actor taking over the various countries covertly.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, he is dying, it seems, and is trying.
It seems like he can't die. That he has almost died more times than he can count.
He keeps having near-death experiences in which he has visions of his judgment in heaven at the pearly gates.
It's true.
And
it's a Wes Anderson film, so Bill Murray is God.
Bill Murray is God, obviously. But so as a result of that, while he is shoring up this Phoenician scheme, he has to decide who his heir is, and he has all these male sons. Well, male sons. He has all these sons.
Well, they're all adopted, right?
I think a couple of them are biological, right?
I forget.
I don't know. He has this whole like fundamentally like an orphanage that he runs across the street from his mansion. It seems like and he never interacts with his sons, and they seem to like want to kill him because they're always shooting crossbows at him and stuff. But he's decided that they're not fit to be his heirs, and so he's like figured out that he has not figured out. He's known this for a while, but he has located his I think sole female heir. And I don't remember the name of the actress.
I got her right here.
But she's essentially the co-star of the movie.
Mia Threppleton?
She is going to be his heir, but
it's Kate Winslet's daughter.
No kidding. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's good.
She's quite good in this. But she's going to be the heir. The only catch is she is about to join a religious order of nuns and, take a vow of poverty and stuff. So she can't be the heir by virtue of that. And so
does this sound complicated? People who have not seen the Phoenician Scheme.
The weird thing is,
it
is complicated how I just explained it, but it is a fairly straightforward movie compared to like, let's say Asteroid City that has all these like layers of like reality, or compared to like the Grand Budapest Hotel where there's like different not different timelines, but like nested stories and flashbacks and stuff. Like this is a linear story. This is a story that is very episodic. He flies to one potential investor, has to convince them.
Yeah.
Hijinks ensue. Flies to the next investor.
Yeah. It's a real hijinks ensue movie.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And it's a Wes Anderson movie, of course. So you've got the really like immaculate framing and like some kind of artificiality with like the sets and stuff. The opening sequence is set on a plane that crashes. That's his first near-death experience. And
though not his first, our first.
That's our first.
Yeah.
But that's the moment where he decides like I don't have much of this left in me before it finally catches up with me, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
But anyway, like so, you're in a plane at the beginning, but it's like very consciously like on a set. And a lot of the movie kind of has that feel because it's Wes Anderson. You have all that kind of like dollhouse looking stuff, although less than like in say for Asteroid City or Henry Sugar, which are much more aesthetically stylized than this one. This is maybe
Henry Sugar feels like it's on a stage.
Yeah, this is a lot looser. This is maybe more like the Darjeeling Limited or something in terms of the aesthetic control on display. But anyway, I've talked a lot about this movie, so weigh in, the rest of y'all.
I will say that this is probably my least favorite Wes Anderson movie in quite some time. I might be the most negative of the three of us. I know that Michael is somewhat negative as well because we saw it together. But this movie just doesn't feel like it works to me narratively or comedically, really. One of my biggest issues with the movie is it doesn't feel like it has jokes. And people speak in a way that is like in the cadence of jokes or in the cadence of Wes Anderson characters making jokes, which is always very like flat and dry. But I don't feel like it was particularly funny. Like BBC or former BBC film critic Mark Kermode would often ding comedies for insufficient laughter. And he would say if a movie didn't make him laugh 6 times and it was meant to be a comedy, it wasn't funny. And I did not laugh maybe 3 times in the Phoenician Scheme. And it's just like, it's not an experience I'm used to having watching Wes Anderson movies. They're delightful and hilarious, right? And I was just kind of stone-faced. It just kind of hit me and slid right off most of the time. I will say the things that I laughed at were usually having to do with Michael Cera, and specifically the voice that Michael Cera is putting on for a little bit over half of this movie.
He's
I would
like
say.
a Swedish
Yeah.
bug professor.
Yeah, he's like an entomologist who's been hired as a private tutor for this dude's children, as if that's like the only thing
he's
that's
been hired
important
as a
to
private
know.
tutor for a dude, for Benicio del Toro, because then he takes breaks to learn about the insects.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because Benicio del Toro also just likes reading pretentious books in planes, right?
Yeah, he's very much like a Howard Hughes type.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
in that regard.
It was funny at Cannes when this premiered. They had like the press conference thing, and Benedict Cumberbatch was talking about the movie, and he said Wes Anderson discovering Michael Cera is like God discovering water.
Yeah. It works really well. For sure.
How has he not been in a Wes Anderson movie before? That blows my mind. Like, I thought for sure he had been in one before.
Timothy Chalamet's only been in one.
I don't think Timothy Chalamet is as natural fit as Michael
That's
Cera.
true. That's true. But like in all the like AI generated Wes Anderson shit, it's always like starring Timothy Chalamet, a person who has only been in one Wes Anderson movie. But, anyways, I have other thoughts about it, but Zach, you saw it. What are your thoughts?
I'm probably in line with y'all also.
Okay.
I was kind of disappointed by it. I feel like I will say though, Michael, you mentioned it before. I find this to be way more complicated to follow than Asteroid City or Grand Budapest. Just because this it's less that it's a complicated plot. It's just there's so many different moving pieces to it all at once that you're just it's more just overwhelming than you're trying to kind of keep up with everything.
Multi-layered con for sure.
Yeah. I think that Wes Anderson has like finely tuned, perfectly manufactured his like aesthetic and his company in terms like as in his acting company. Like he's like it's 100%. It's like perfectly tuned after the Roald Dahl shorts specifically with Netflix.
I loved those, by the way.
They're fantastic.
They're
fantastic. But I think he's lost, especially we watched Grand Budapest for the 500th, and it's a little over a month ago. I think he's lost his writing since then. Like I think in general,
it's way looser now.
I think the writing's way loose. I think that a lot of it just feels like kind of like you're supposed to accept stuff because it's a Wes Anderson movie. And I'm like, you can do a little bit of that, but it's kind of like it went from like accepting like 20% of the movie to accepting like 100% of the movie. I didn't dislike my time in this movie. It was I thought it was funny. I liked Benicio del Toro. He kind of brings this aggressive energy to a Wes Anderson movie that you don't normally get outside of like. He's not nearly as good, but like I think he's in the mold of like a Gene Hackman and Royal Tenenbaums. I think the writing's just not really there. I saw people talking about this movie as the most overtly political movie that he's made since Grand Budapest Hotel. And I would love to hear the thoughts because I'm kind of struggling to piece that together.
It feels really hard to parse politically to me. But Grace, are you trying to say something?
I just had a quick question because who wrote this with him? He always has a writing.
It was just him.
It was okay. Cause see,
that could explain something.
No. I
was gonna say because Noah Baumbach, he and Noah Baumbach, they wrote a lot together, and then for Royal Tenenbaums, it was him, Noah Baumbach, and
Owen Wilson. He wrote his first 2 movies with Owen Wilson.
His last few movies have been
Grand Budapest is just him.
His last few movies have been written by Wes Anderson, but story by Roman Coppola and Wes Anderson. So that's the pattern that like the last. Since probably Grand Budapest, I think they've all taken.
Yeah, we could. I'll be curious to hear.
I think we lose the comedic voice.
A little bit.
I would be curious to hear more thoughts. But yeah, no, I agree. I think whether it's Noah Baumbach with like Fantastic Mr. Fox and some others, or I would really love to see him with Owen Wilson again.
That'd be great.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of like I left the theater and I was like, I didn't have a bad time, but I definitely was like, I wish there was more in the writing here.
I thought it was funny. This is probably where
I sat next to this man. He did not laugh with his mouth.
What did he laugh with? Can you say it?
In his
Say it
heart.
on
His
podcast?
heart.
Yeah.
I will say that like laughing out loud is not always something that I do in a movie that I think is funny. I thought there were lots of funny things in this movie. I didn't think they really cohered that well. I think the movie, like as episodic as it is, doesn't really like the episodes kind of crowd out the continuity because like the big thing that's supposed to be happening is the father and daughter are supposed to be becoming closer, and the last scene of the movie is exclusively them kind of in a really, I think a really lovely but kind of unprecedented scene of them like being really emotionally you know, forthright with each other and stuff.
It's super underdeveloped.
And it's underdeveloped because most of the time is spent on things that I do think are funny. So for instance, Bryan Cranston and Tom Hanks.
This is funny.
Bryan Cranston are two of his investors who basically represent like American industry, right? And so they walk up in like suits. One's got a Coca-Cola in his hand. The other's got a Hershey bar in his hand. They play like a game of basketball. There's a game of horse. In order to decide whether or not they're going to, you know, invest in the Phoenician scheme. And like, there's stuff like that where it's like these kind of broad caricatures that I think are like funny. Michael Cera is like a broad caricature. Yeah. And he actually plays a couple different broad caricatures because there's like layers to his performance. So I just want to get that out of the way. I thought it was funny. I thought this was not as funny as some of the funniest Wes Andersons, but I would say it's about as funny as like Asteroid City, which I didn't think was a laugh riot, you know.
Asteroid City works for other reasons.
I agree. This doesn't have. This was anyway. The only thing I'll say about the politics is I think the reason people are saying it's his most political is it's the one that's most focused on the things that are political about Wes Anderson, but Wes Anderson never seems to be interested in interrogating. So
that's
like,
a good point.
You know, obviously Wes Anderson has this huge nostalgia for like the kind of like American, like the Anglo mid-century, right? Like American and British. You know, whether that be like, you know, the Roald Dahl milieu, which he's gone to not just with the Netflix shows, but with Fantastic Mr. Fox, or whether that's, you know, any number of his movies are obsessed with the, you know, the kind of 40s through 60s, maybe 70s, you know, kind of like peak American Empire sort of moment. And very few of his movies are dealing with the actual like American, like what made America that at the time. So like, you know, you can be inside, I don't know, you mean inside Asteroid City, right? And Asteroid City does talk about the military some and all that, but it's not really about the military.
No,
right?
not at all.
However, this one is explicitly about like the machinations that allowed for like global international corporations to like gain power in the decolonizing world. Like the plot is on its surface about that. I would say that it's not very interested in interrogating that. That's just like a thing that's happening in the plot. Like,
and it's interested in giving you an emotional redemption story for this awful capitalist man, but not in a way that feels like it's co-signing the politics of him, because they feel like totally divorced, right?
Yeah, I don't know though. It's just, it seems uninterested in the politics. And maybe that makes it interesting, just like kind of matter-of-factly being like, yeah, you know, multinational corporations were explicitly involved in the nation building of the Middle East. Like maybe that in itself, just on its face, is, you know, interesting. And
but you were saying when you walked out that this was Wes Anderson not beating the right wing allegation.
Well, because he's not critical of it. I would say like it's a movie that in its disinterest in the actual politics of it, you know, and by virtue of just presenting it and largely presenting it through the point of view of, you know, there is one group of like communist insurgents that are about as caricatured as the rest of the movie, right? He's not more or less sympathetic toward these people as he is like Bryan Cranston and Tom Hanks or whatever. They're just another wacky character to come in, and so like,
but objects of mockery, just like everything else is.
I would say
mockery, and they're not, because he takes them seriously in the sense of he's not making fun of them in their totality, right? Like they're just another piece of Benicio del Toro's character arc. And I don't know, like I would say that he's not critical of any of this stuff. And so I would say that like if you go in thinking that Wes Anderson has kind of like crypto right-wing preoccupations, which I think is something that sometimes people say about him, with his sense of nostalgia, with his like affection for the rich, like that sort of thing. Like, it's not a movie that's going to dissuade you of that and might like put more doubts in, but I don't think it's very interested in the politics at all. It just is simply, what if the Royal Tenenbaums happened on the stage of global capitalism rather than just in a bunch of rich kids' flats?
I would say Wes Anderson is probably a libertarian. And deep in his heart, he's a like Eisenhower Republican. Especially if you look at the type of like the what he's interested in, he's probably an Eisenhower Republican, which is honestly like probably most liberals today in all actuality.
But I think that libertarian streak, if that's like in him, like it plays into this movie because ultimately the state is the villain in this movie, because they like, as much as he encounters communists and like hostile people from other countries and stuff like that, like the ultimate people gunning for him are the coalition of states trying to get him to pay taxes, more or less.
But that it just like doesn't get resolved whatsoever. In his like final speech, he's like, "Oh, I'll take care of that," and you like get like a cut to them listening in on him, and then you never circle back to that again.
Well, partially because this is kind of a.
I'll let you finish the point, but we also need to move on. We're going to lose Grace.
It's been a long time on one movie. Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is the movie resolves by him of his own will deciding what to do with his wealth, rather than the state or private or public entities or some sort of collective, and so like
just a benevolent billionaire.
Correct. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
All right. Phoenician Scheme in theaters now. Take us away from the capitalism, Grace, with Barbarella.
I'd love to. Barbarella. Well, sure. Golly. So this was a part of a collection that they had on Criterion Channel with all of these other movies written by Terry Sutherland. I hope that's his right name, right? Terry Sutherland. Sutherland. Southern.
Just Southern.
Say it.
Yeah.
Southern. South. Terry South. And so I watched this, and I also watched Dr. Strangelove, but I had already seen Barbarella, and I love Barbarella so much that I named my cat after the movie. And the first time I saw it, it was just the most wild, outlandish thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was like an acid trip. As someone who has never done acid, has never had dreams or designs to take acid, just watch Barbarella. Just watch, hot, big-chested women running around, free love, and expressing their utter disdain for anything other than peace and love. This stars Jane Fonda as Barbarella, and she, through a series of gorgeous costume changes, has been assigned to thwart this mad scientist's plan to control the universe via the use of some super bomb. And the plot is very loose. That's really not important. Some big things that stick out. The mad scientist's name is Durand. So that's where we get Duran. And there she crash lands on this planet on her way there, and that happens to be the planet where Durand is living. Also, something about this is like you don't really need to pay attention. I don't feel like you really need to pay attention to the plot. So recently I rewatched it on a date, thinking that like, hey, this is going to be so fun. Like, you'll learn a little bit about me, my style, aesthetics, and what I enjoy in a movie, which is just spectacle. For the most part, sometimes I really just enjoy like a fun, distracting spectacle. And that's what this was. And so the person I was watching this with was like dead silent through the entire movie.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm trying to pay attention. And I'm like,
your brain should kind of like drift in and out. I feel like with this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't feel there are some things that are worth latching onto, but the way I described this movie to him, I'm like, this movie is equal parts French and Italian. French in that I believe this is based off of a French graphic novel, or it was, or a French graphic novel, spawned out of this. And in that, I feel like it lacks in a lot of nuance. I think that it is very bold in what it means, which is that love is the most powerful force in the universe. All things are informed by love, in whatever form it may be. And then I said it's Italian in breasts. It's just that. It's just a very fun and sexy movie, but there are aspects of it that I really enjoy. I really enjoy Jane Fonda's sort of naivety, this sort of like I mean, it's not that she's like infantilized in any way. She's an aviatrix, so she's a skilled navigator. She's, the she's essentially like a peacetime officer. I mean, we don't really have like we don't really have
Peace
the
Corps?
words peace Corps. Well, not even like
The
peace.
intergalactic
No,
Peace
she's
Corps.
like if like Captain Kirk were like a woman.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of thing.
Just her job is just to travel around, keep the peace, and there has been peace in the galaxy for thousands of years, and there are these lines that like stick out to me, as like, oh, that's something that's clever, like when they send her a gun, because she doesn't have one, they haven't had weapons, so they had to send her a gun from the museum, like from this artifact that's been preserved, and then she has it. And at this point, she is like stripped away, like out of whatever, suit that she was in. And so she says, um, armed like the naked savage. And there are these other lines like, an angel doesn't make love, an angel is love, or uncrucify the angel. I mean, there are just these lines that stick out that speak to, um, you know, I mean, it gets a little repetitive and it gets a little heavy handed to keep saying that speak to the, healing and connective powers of love. And, that is like the main plot is just to believe in love, to be an officer, an ambassador, an emissary of love. And that carnal pleasures are a radical act of resistance in a world that wants control, death, and destruction. So,
I mean,
Barbarella.
rocks. Yeah. And you just recently watched it, right?
I did, yeah.
Do you have other thoughts?
I do. I don't think I liked it as much as Grace. I thought it was boring for long stretches. I gotta be honest. It looks very cool oftentimes. Yeah. Other times, it kind of just looks like we have plastic wrap and like, that sort of thing. And that is its own charm, but it can only go so long. I will also say, you said she's not infantilized. I do think she is like a tad. She comes to this planet not knowing what like sex is, because like in the Intergalactic Empire, they like take a pill and use like psychic powers or something to have sex, and so like there's this like man who has to teach her what sex is, and all of a sudden she becomes like sex obsessed, and like I think that it's not like super problematic, but there is like a trope where it's like, oh, this man had to like awaken her sexuality. I don't know, like I think there's like an element of that. Jane Fonda is very fun and very funny, and obviously she's gorgeous as well. So I think the main idea of this movie is that Jane Fonda is hot, and in that case, like I think this movie is very successful.
Yeah, so there is a scene between her and then like the leader of this like resistance group, or no, the first scene when she has sex with like this male trapper.
He's like riding around on like what are those things that like smooth the ice in hockey games? Like
Zamboni.
Zamboni's like
they were zamboning. So she's like, no, people who can't afford the pills, like the very, very poor, they do it that way. So then it's sort of like it sets up like actual like carnality and like intimacy is something that only the poorest of the poor can do, and then this sort of like clean sterile way of just we take a pill, we touch hands, and we sync up like telepathically. You know, it makes sexuality something like dirty and disgusting. And then I think that when she's awakened, yes, it does take a man to awaken that in her. I think that it shows her that it is something much more beautiful and something that you can't replicate the same way. But then when she's on the planet, that Duran Duran is there to stop him, and she links up with the resistance leader. He is so excited to take the pill with her and sync up, and he just sort of like gets right down to it. But I don't. It's not that I think that she's like infantilized. I think that there's like this sort of there's like a gentle sort of innocence of just this is what this is. And as someone that has grown up in this galaxy that has been completely devoid of war, violence, anything like that, so I think that she plays that well. But yeah, it does take a man and a very
I
hunky
mean, she's
handsome
also a
one.
hetero, right? So like
Yeah.
that would be
No.
how that happened, right?
Yeah,
No?
There is no,
like,
she's not.
She's not hetero.
It's
No.
yeah.
But she's into dudes. It's not like she's not into dudes.
It's not like she's bisexual, because then
Yeah.
there is the evil queen of the planet. That they have this sort of like smoldering sexual tension between the two of each other, and it's just that like this evil queen is, I mean, she's this like embodiment of like lust and greed, and just wants everything, everybody in her sort of like menagerie of like hangers on, in her court. They're all they're like smoking a man who's like in some like hookah pipe. They're like smoking his essence, and it's all about like carnality and like the sins of the flesh and excess
I'm
that can
also
like
confused.
lead it gets that way. It gets very confusing, and it is just spectacle. But
I don't want to belabor this, because I was overall like, I liked the movie overall, and I don't think it's like this like very seditious
anti-feminist.
like like it's not like anti woman or whatever, but like I don't know, like when you describe it like you did, I'm on board with it. But when you watch the movie, like Jane Fonda is like an airhead about sex, right? Where she's just like super willing and like I don't know. I'm only coming at this from like, if this movie were in a vacuum, I would think nothing of it. But like, there's a whole tradition of like very like sexually available women who are naive, and the man has to like shepherd her.
I think the trope is born sexy yesterday.
Is that what it's
TV
called?
trope?
Yeah, and so like again, I don't want to besmirch the movie too much, but I do think it's like very that it was written and directed by men, and like who
it was,
obviously have their own designs for Jane Fonda, and I
let alone French cartoon or French comic artists.
I have no idea who wrote the comic, but at any rate, it was fun. It is very like mid late 60s sci-fi, like pre 2001, pre Star Wars, like primo, like Technicolor, like that kind of sci-fi,
like retrofuturist sci-fi in a way.
Well, it wasn't even retrofuturist
now, it's what we think of as retrofuturism.
It's very like golden age sci-fi, but if it, instead of starring like an egghead or a square jawed dude, it was starring Jane Fonda, and I think that's wonderful in some way.
All right. Well, Barbarella, it's on the Criterion Channel right now, from Terry Southern.
May not be.
Going from you talked about Barbarella's bisexuality. Let's go from there to straightness. Tell us a little bit about the straight story.
I had no idea where that was going.
Well, the straight and narrow. This is a David Lynch movie, and this is David Lynch at his most, I think, at his most wholesome, straightforward, and
also not written by him. Written by Oh yeah, it's Disney movie and it's rated G.
And it's rated G, and it
Yeah.
is based on a true story. A man, Alvin Strait, travels across Iowa to Wisconsin to see his brother after his estranged brother after suffering after his brother suffered a very serious stroke. Um, this is this was very difficult to watch. I saw this with Andrew last night. It was a wonderful Father's Day movie, because Alvin Strait is this very loving older father who lives with his young daughter, who lives with his daughter Rose. Rose, I believe, is a person with a mental disability, as we're like led to believe. The
Yeah,
two of
I
them
think
live
it's
together.
mostly
They
just a speaking disorder or
A
a
speaking
speech
disorder, do you think?
disorder.
A speech impediment of some
Yeah, yeah.
sort? There seems to be something about her
It's
that
like it's not quite a stutter. It's almost like she just needs little gaps to like form the word that she wants to say next, right?
yeah, right. And it's, that's just her, and the two of them live together very happily, as father and daughter, and they understand each other better than, I think that anybody does. But he gets it in his mind that he's gonna go see his brother, but she can't drive, he can't drive, he can't see, he won't let anybody take him, so he decides to ride a riding lawnmower 300 over 370 miles from Lawrence, Iowa to Mount Zion, Wisconsin. A real party state is what everybody's saying in the movie.
Everybody's going to party in Wisconsin. In this movie.
Everybody parties in Wisconsin. Like, that's so cool. And along the way, there are a few hiccups and there is a misstart, but what shines through is the kindness and generosity of the community around him. And I think that this is the world, or the America that David Lynch believed in, and that this is the America that David Lynch wishes everyone lived in.
Yeah,
There is something so earnest and so tender. I was extremely emotional throughout the entire movie. I'm emotional seeing a David Lynch movie, especially one that I had never seen before.
Mhm.
I am emotional when there's anything to do with fathers and daughters. I get emotional when there's, you know, elderly people that are trying so hard to shout to the world, I exist, I'm capable, I've lived this long.
Mhm.
I was thinking about this today. One thing that Lynch is so great at doing is really giving groups of people agency and identity. I think, like with Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with Me, he gives identity and agency to young girls, to allow for just to allow and women in Mulholland Drive, in Wild at Heart. He allows for women to have such vast and unique identities. They are active participants in their lives, although things are being done to them. It's not like these things just happen. I think that what he did in this is that he gave um, elderly people, some real agency to be actors in their own life. And so as you watch the movie, anytime he experiences, a slice of kindness, more often than not, there are some of his peers around him, people that he sort of like flits into their lives, imparts some wisdom, or shares in some tender person to person moment that says, hey, we're still here. We're not dead yet. People have decided to write us off, that we can't take care of ourselves, that we aren't capable, but we've made it this long, and darn it if we're not going to make it even longer, and we're going to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And it's so I think it's really special that he's able to do that. And this is such a really tender movie, like a really kind one.
Mhm.
It's very funny. There's some fantastic humor. At one point, Richard Farnsworth, who plays Alvin Strait, he is so fed up with his riding mower because it broke down, that he goes out, he shoots it, and it explodes. That's very funny. But there are also little touches of Lynch throughout, with the small town Americana,
Yeah.
with the um There's a scene where you hear the machinery of the grain silo. He really loves factories and modern machinery. There are moments where if you're a seasoned Lynch viewer, you get this kind of pit in your stomach, like what's gonna happen? What's gonna take this over? And I just sat
There
there
is
and
a very scary sequence too. The
oh
hill that he goes
yes,
down.
yes,
That's filmed in such kind of a horrifying way too. So like
with
close
the
up and shaky.
fire. It's so
Yeah.
shaky. He loses control of his lawnmower at one point, and he's towing this huge truck behind him, or like this truck bed behind him that he lives in, that's like his camper, and there are like antler horns behind it, so I get nervous about anything pointy behind someone. He loses control of his lawnmower and he's careening down this hill, and there's a controlled fire happening. This hill is very steep. There's all these people. He could lose control. He could spin out. He could flip. Anything awful could happen. But he gets to the end of it and it slows down and he gets control. And then suddenly everybody is on him. Are you okay? How can we help you? The fire department
Yeah.
is there. But it's filmed. The camera shakes. You get glimpses of the fire and you get to see um, Alvin's perspective as someone who is like losing his vision and losing control. Like, is this the moment where he loses control entirely? He breaks down before he gets to see his brother. And as this is based on a true story, he does make it. And it's a very touching homecoming, him meeting with his brother, who is
Harry Dean Stanton.
Harry Dean Stanton.
and at one point, I think, Andrew, did you notice when Harry Dean Stanton came out, somebody in our audience tried to clap?
I did not notice that. No.
I noticed it. There was just like one clap, like one
I would've
solitary
joined in.
clap. It was quick, and it's like, shut the hell up. Like, you have just, do not enter this scene. You are not a part of this. We're all very excited to see it, but it was very tender, and it's more about what they don't say to each other
Yeah.
than what they do. You came all the way here to see me on that. Yes, I did. Like, and that you can feel like here is the brotherly reconnecting that they've been, that's been 10 years in the making. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was so full of love and so full of kindness, and it just overwhelmed me. Like I said, I cried through the entire movie. I stayed behind at Central Cinema to talk more about it and cried some more. Like, just like very close to just bawling my eyes out, just not upset. And I was also angry that nobody told me it was gonna make me cry, but
I should have thought of that.
you
Yeah.
should have thought about that.
I
Everything
figured
kind
you would know going into a David Lynch movie after his passing that anything would make you cry.
Anything would make me cry. Well, everything makes me cry, so it doesn't take a whole lot. But that especially just really touched something in me, and I think that like this stands out as something so special.
Yeah.
For Lynch. This is so singular, so unlike anything he's ever done, and unfortunately it is unlike anything he will ever get to do again. And so I'm so grateful that this is one of the stories that he was able to tell and told so well.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think one thing that makes that even more so, like there's so much of like that sense of like this being special. It's Richard Farnsworth's last role as well.
Oh,
He died within a year of this movie's release. And then I don't know if you ever saw Lucky, which was one of the last Harry Dean Stanton movies, but it has a lot of overlap with this movie. Like in terms of tone, also David Lynch shows up in Lucky, and I just feel like there is something about like Lynch and Harry Dean Stanton together, like as they both kind of approached their twilight years, where I don't know, like there's like a really like
they seem to have a very zen approach to the whole thing.
There's a connection there, and a very dignified thing too, because like Lucky is also about like aging people, and I think like it, like you said, Grace, it like really captures something, and then like the more you learn about like the people involved in it, the more it becomes moving because of the kind of meta angle of like it's not just people speculating about what it's like to be old and, you know, kind of like insisting on your own like dignity and your own abilities.
Yeah.
It is made by people who, you know,
Yeah.
are going through that.
And that was true about The Return as well.
Yeah.
Like what's so special about that show is it's just kind of like captured and documented so many great performers shortly before they were to pass away.
Did any of y'all see the documentary about the log ladies?
No, I didn't.
Because
No.
right, isn't that the documentary is about her insistence on being in The Return, right?
Oh, I don't know. But you can tell that she knows that she is kind of like on her last legs, but wants to be a part of this.
As I understand it, she insisted on being in it.
Yeah.
Like they didn't like, you know.
Yeah.
Wasn't their idea.
But I think that is something that is very resonant about watching a lot of Lynch's work, is that it does feel like kind of a memorial to some of his performers. And now looking back at this, kind of like using this as a way to see or contact David Lynch, like you see so much of him in it as well. Like, and he would have been a much younger man when he made this movie, but like the way that he has directed this actor to read these lines, it does feel like we're channeling what old man David Lynch would be like. And like one thing that I really like about him is how slowly and methodically he speaks. And it's just a thing that actually kind of reminds me of my grandpa. Like he just speaks very, very slowly and like is very careful about each word that he's going to say. Like he's playing it out. And sometimes there will be those long gaps in the conversation, but like that's just part of what it takes to, I don't know, use language carefully and meaningfully, right? And like this movie is so much about it is like kind of an ode to slowness. You're seeing this guy travel a great distance very slowly. And in a lot of David Lynch movies, we are used to seeing the image of like the highway rushing past at night. And it's like foreboding and ominous. And here you're seeing these like broad daylight close-up shots of like concrete highway just moving by very slowly while this dude is Alvin Strait is just, you know, moving on in his riding lawnmower. And David Lynch really valued the things about life that are slow, kind of inherently. That like we don't have to be like constantly hurrying and doing things as productively and efficiently as possible. There are things in The Return that were too slow for a lot of people, like that scene of a guy sweeping a floor for like 5 minutes. But David Lynch sees something worthwhile in looking at that and spending the time that it takes to do this thing.
Not just David Lynch, but his collaborators too. I don't know how much you guys have watched other Richard Farnsworth movies.
I've not.
But I mean, he's a great like character actor, and a lot of like the kind of like cadence and intonation of his delivery here is not like a Lynch creation, you know, but he's such a great match for Lynch when Lynch is not, going into the belly of the beast, you know,
exactly.
when Lynch is willing to kind of just like luxuriate, you know, like I think Richard Farnsworth is really good. One I grew up a lot watching was there's like an Anne of Green Gables miniseries. It's like a Canadian production from like the 80s, and he's if you're familiar with that story, he's Matthew, who like the very essence of the character is he's like this kind of soft-spoken guy who maybe only says like, you know, a couple words in the conversation, but they're meaningful words or that sort of thing, you know. And it's just like you said, Andrew, like so much of David Lynch is like squirmy and like, you know, a lot of times his like approach to like depicting life is to kind of rip back like an artifice to show something like, you know, really otherworldly and like, you know, uncomfortable. And like Straight Story is one of the rare times, and then also The Return. Like I would say like those are the two that are like in sync with that kind of like they luxuriate in like the texture of like a particular experience without having to like, you know, oh, actually, you know, we're ripping back and like, you know, that was all a dream and we're really like in this like hellish version of Los Angeles or something. right. Which is worth saying, like this was made between Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, which is
insane. Get you a man who can do both.
Oh man.
We can do all three.
Anyways, we love David Lynch. We love The Straight Story. Zach is apparently going on some sort of David Lynch odyssey this year. Is that happening? No? Shrug?
You know, David Lynch was a Reagan supporter.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
surprise me in the slightest.
That
Crazy.
goes along with Grace's thing about like this is the version of America Lynch believed in, right? I think
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
thought a lot of America
The like
was
New
this.
Morning in America
Yeah.
had to have been like David Lynch catnip, and also like
Yeah.
Reagan. There's something very Lynchian about Reagan because he is
He's
presenting
evil.
American
Because
figure.
he's Bob.
Well, he's like
Sorry.
presenting. He's like presenting this like all-American
He's
figure. but there's-
Bob who presents as Cooper.
Yeah,
No,
but,
he doesn't
but
present
there's
as
this
Cooper.
very
That's
uneasy like
mean to Cooper.
uncanniness about Reagan, like that I think is very
Yeah.
like, bizarre and like Lynchian in that way. Like I don't know.
Yeah, he's the like, TV cowboy, nice TV cowboy exterior, Bob interior.
He's a weird dude.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, Grace, are we losing you?
I think so. Yes, folks. I must depart.
All right.
Gotta go to her fourth job.
Well,
It's my fifth.
What am I missing?
Library, karaoke host, bartender, this podcast.
Oh,
out
the
some
other podcast. Yeah.
uh,
On the hustle.
okay.
I'm a
We're not giving you any money for this, but okay.
Well, maybe somebody will. Maybe somebody
Maybe
will
somebody
give us
will.
money for
Movies
this.
we saw this month, patreon.com.
Look at this.
Look
Look at
Yeah,
this. She's
yeah,
having to
yeah.
go to
Why
other
don't I have
jobs.
So many jobs.
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with you people? Give us money so we can pay people so they can have less jobs.
Grace has got to put food on the table, people.
Maybe
I gotta put cat food on the table for Barbarella.
Like retire fund.
Yeah, come on. Give us the $50,000. I'll go out and hang out with you and do a podcast for you so we can pay Grace to.
Just podcast.
What's the next? All right. So we've talked for an hour now. We have 4 movies left.
We've talked about 4, right?
We've talked about 3.
3.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Felt like 4.
Bad ratio.
A lot of that was tenacious.
Well, we 3 movies that a lot of us had seen.
Yeah.
That usually
Yeah.
makes it go much longer. Yeah.
Yeah, Grace, you can leave at any time. We're doing
We're doing something.
we're trying to figure out.
We're
I'm
doing
trying to
something.
I'm trying to figure out in real time what we're gonna go to next. All
You
right.
go to night moves.
Yeah.
We'll move
Hey.
on over. All right. Well, anyways.
Hmm.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, guys. Good
Bye,
night.
Grace.
Bye, Grace.
Bye, Grace.
Well, now that she mentioned night moves, you got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Although it'd
that's
be
true.
really funny if we talked about
Everything
talking about
but
night
night
moves.
Let me pivot to an entirely different movie.
I don't want to hear you talk about friendship personally, but you can
Really?
do it.
We could do friendship. That's fine.
Let's do
There's no structure. We're all
That's right.
we're all just wherever. Let's talk about
This
friendship.
is the kind of like luxury you get when you subscribe to the Patreon and get movies you saw this month every month.
Yeah. It's just you gotta really like us. All right. Friendship. Friendship came on the scene and seemed like a movie that was made in a factory for Zach. It stars Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. That's
Is
all I
Connor
need.
O'Malley present?
Connor O'Malley shows up in this
Hell
movie.
yeah.
And let me tell you, does
Oh,
Connor O'Malley show up in this movie? Like, he doesn't disappoint. He shows up. So I went and saw this on a Tuesday. The crowd in the theater entirely male. And like a specific kind of like anime sweaty
Yeah.
male that like you were like, yeah, this is the crew for this. And like there were only 2 women present, and I don't think they were here on their own. Like it was kind of like, this is date night and I'm appeasing
Yeah.
this guy who, if I don't go with him, he's gonna bring like his full pillow doll with him.
Wasn't there like I feel like I saw someone talk about that on Letterboxd with Rap World, where like Connor O'Malley, like in the Q&A, was like, any ladies in the crowd, raise your hand if you came with your boyfriend, and like all of them raised their hand.
Yeah, that's what this was. But yeah, Connor O'Malley shows up, and let me tell you, Connor O'Malley, hell of a way to show up. He got a round of applause, at least for me. So friendship. This is, I think, the best way to kind of give you like sell this movie to me in the elevator is, this is like, what if the king of comedy what if it was the king of comedy, but instead of trying to get close to Jerry Lewis / late night host, it was just trying to have a male friendship.
Yeah.
It stars Tim Robinson. For those who don't know who Tim Robinson is, he probably most people saw him first on SNL. He was on in front of the camera on SNL for a season, and then he became a writer for 2 or 3 seasons afterwards. But he's most probably well known now for his show I Think You Should Leave, which is a sketch variety show on Netflix. And he's done a number of other different projects and things like that on the side. In this movie, it's very much like he's the Tim Robinson character that you kind of assume from I Think You Should Leave. That might be his only mode. I don't know.
I have a question. So as someone who wants to like Tim Robinson, but actually can't really stand I Think You Should Leave, will I like this movie? Is it possible that I could like this movie?
Yeah, because
Okay.
So I was thinking about and I think this is what made the movie really interesting to me, because I Think You Should Leave, for the most part the characters in that mean well. Like they're not being they're not trying to egregiously cause harm to other people. You just kind of have this this ignorance going on that kind of keeps them distanced. In this one, this person is not a good person. He's kind of an I Think You Should Leave Tim Robinson character that you're not kind of like, oh, that was silly, and then the music plays. It's in a I Think You Should Leave, it's usually a 6 to 7 minute bit, and then it cuts to the next one. In this one, it's you get a bit for 6 or 7 minutes. You're like, okay. And then it's just it doesn't cut. The movie continues to play. And you're like, oh man, we're stuck with this guy.
Okay. So is there any sort of thriller elements to this? Is that where it's going? Okay.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. It's let me try to kind of so the story is Tim Robinson plays, I forgot what his character's name is. It's Tim Robinson. Craig. Good name for him.
That is a good name for this character.
His name's Craig. He's a typical suburban dad. He's got a son who doesn't really pay him any attention. He's married to Kate Mara, who has this kind of flower business and works from home. He has this very nondescript job that he does. One night though, Paul Rudd's character, Paul Rudd moves into the neighborhood, and Paul Rudd's character, they get a mail mix up, and so Tim Robinson takes them over to Paul Rudd's house, and he's like, "Oh, nice to meet you," I have a cordial greeting. And then the next day, Kate was like, "Hey, a new neighbor wanted to invite you over for beers," and so they go and hang out. And they get along. They seem to have it's a very normal conversation. You kind of have Tim Robinson is a bit Tim Robinson-y. He kind of gets in the places that are odd, but kind of Paul Rudd plays it off, and it's fine. Paul Rudd plays this, which is kind of funny with him playing it. He plays this weatherman, similar to his role in Anchorman, and he's this nighttime weatherman who really wants to make it big and become a morning weatherman. But he's just not able to make the jump, and he's interested in these geodes and rocks and instruments, and plays. I forgot what instrument he plays. It might be a bass guitar, which is kind of funny from I Love You, Man. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of different Paul Rudd characters. And Tim Robinson just becomes it just kind of Paul Rudd's really charming, good looking. He's playing very much in his wheelhouse, and Tim Robinson's character is just eating it up. And so they hang out another time, but the second time they hang out, he starts to kind of let him in on his Paul Rudd lets him in on his world. He takes him on this tour of the sewers that he loves taking, and they go crawling through the sewers and end up in City Hall and stuff. And it's just building this friendship, and then for a third hang, Paul Rudd invites Tim Robinson over to his house, and a bunch of Paul Rudd's friends are over there, and Tim Robinson just feels this feels like completely like accepted into this like tribe. Like he's like, I've been accepted into this group. They have this really funny sequence where they just out of nowhere harmonizing and singing, and it like does this like close up on Tim Robinson. And he's just like soaking it all in, just like trying to sing along, and they're having this just like dudes sing along session. And then
you were breaking up a second ago.
What is the song?
Yeah, what's the song?
I forgot what the song is. I'll have to look it up. It's very funny that like 8 dudes in a garage are all sitting around in a circle singing this together though. And then but then like something, I won't spoil it too much, but something happens. Something happens that like kind of, that's not like bad or anything, but is kind of weird. And kind of like weirds the guys out about Tim that Tim Robinson has done. Kind of weirds them out about him. He kind of like shakes it off and he goes home. And then he goes over to Paul Rudd's house the next day to be like, hey, I had a fun time. Let's hang out soon. And Paul Rudd's like, yeah, like this was fun, but like I don't think we should be friends anymore. Like we had some good hangs, but like that's it.
That is a really hard thing to do. We don't have a social grip for that.
Yeah.
You tell somebody you just don't think it's working out in your friendship.
Yeah, it's just like hey, like it's just like hey, we had some fun things, but and so then that just leads Tim Robinson to proceed to just unravel, and that's where it becomes very much like King of Comedy, because he's going over the top to like construct himself in this way that would seem appealing to Paul Rudd, but then also just kind of diving deeper and deeper into the recesses of like just like the most rancid personalities that Tim Robinson can construct. And that's kind of where the movie goes. I kind of went in and was like, I'm gonna like this because I like Tim Robinson, I like Paul Rudd, I'm gonna laugh at them very easily, and I did. And that's going to be a day. But I kind of think that this is one of the better movies that I've seen this year. I like that it kind of twists up the conceit of what you were kind of expecting to see from these two performers, and makes like this like relatively effective thriller of just like how far is this guy gonna go in order to like rekindle this friendship. It also has, I think the kind of like normal guy does drugs and trips, is a pretty like kind of basic, kind of overplayed conceit to do in a comedy. I think that this might be in the top 5 of like best normal guy decides to trip, and I think that this is like one of the all timers. It's really, really funny. To answer your question from before, I think having a background knowledge of like, I think you should leave. And like everybody in the theater, all the people, all their pillows, like they all had a really good time and they were laughing really hard. At just anything the guy said, like, but I think the movie plays on that level, but I think it's also a little bit smarter than it kind of like the surface level. And I think it has some kind of interesting dynamics of just like, just not like friendships, but also like specifically like male friendships that, it very much twists into like into this kind of this evilness, this like just like completely like to the point where like Tim Robinson, who's I think perfect to do this, completely goes like feral in like his attempts to try to like get a friend back.
So what's your take on whether or not this movie is about the male loneliness epidemic? That's the thing I keep seeing about this movie.
Yeah, I read a nice write-up about that in Jezebel by Kylie Chung, who's a very good writer. I thought she had it. I like kind of believe in that to a large degree. I don't blame it on a lot of stuff, though. I think there has to be kind of a 50-50. I do think it takes that phenomenon in like a horror direction without. So
you think it's intentionally invoking that?
Yeah, I think it is in like a way that's like just this kind of unnerving. I wouldn't say it's a horror movie, but it's a thriller. I think it starts as like a more straight comedy and then becomes a thriller. All I'll say about Connor O'Malley is there's this party like midway through the movie, and he shows up, and they like have an interaction. And there's this point where like Tim Robinson's trying to like pump up his wife, but she's not having it. And he like stands up on this like podium thing and is like, everybody, we're gonna do a parade for her. And he like starts doing like a parade thing and like leaves, and nobody follows him. And Connor O'Malley follows suit and like goes up on the podium thing and is like, hey guys, my name's Kevin. I don't know why I'm so nervous being up here. And then like he's talking and Tim Robinson's character is outside, and it cuts back to inside. And the last thing you hear is him going like, the last thing I'll say, we should have never left Afghanistan. I did not like how we pulled out of it. He's like, that's all I got to say, though. And allegedly on the Blu-ray, there's a 12-minute cut of the Connor O'Malley, Tim Robinson thing that I desperately want to see. I think you should check out Friendship. I think
I will. Yeah, I was already wanting to see it, but you sold me. I'm gonna go see it.
Do you guys remember that Aubrey Plaza movie that? The plot honestly sounds a little bit similar. I can't remember.
Are you thinking Ingrid Goes West?
Yeah.
Internet movie.
Yeah. Also a movie that like felt like people responded to it by kind of talking about like think piece talking points, you know?
Yeah,
and
totally.
Anyway, I haven't seen Friendship, but that's what came to mind as you were talking, Zach.
Yeah. All right. Let's just
Could we Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna name the 3 movies and be like, what direction we want to go.
Oh, I was gonna say, could we pause? Because we usually take a break.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And so I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get some more water. But
pause. All right, here's our weird edit back. It's gonna be a strange one for people. We're still figuring out it's formless. Come on, y'all.
The actual episodes for the series will be professionally edited in a way that movies you saw this week or month, might be a little more loose. Get your parasocial kicks. You know?
Yeah. All right, Andrew, I'm going to toss it over to you for your movie you want to talk about.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about Bring Her Back, new horror movie by, I'm not totally sure how to say their names, but the Philippou brothers, Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou. This is their second feature after the movie Talk to Me, which was an A24 horror movie in 2022. A movie that I skipped because I think 2022 was maybe we had reached peak like A24 elevated horror. There was so much of it, and I think that there was a lot of fatigue in the air. I was definitely feeling a little bit of it, even as an arty horror enjoyer myself. I was like, what, this is going to be actually about trauma or something? And like, it actually is, but in a good way, I think. I got around to seeing Talk to Me last October, because one of my sisters saw it and thought it was amazing and was like, you got to watch Talk to Me. It was October. I was looking for horror movies to watch, and I checked it out, and it's actually very good. Talk to Me is an incredibly impressive movie. Just like all the craft stuff that goes into making a scary movie scary, Talk to Me does incredibly well. And it also stars a small cast of actors playing these teen characters. None of them are stars, but they all have these like really nuanced and well-shapen characters. And I was like genuinely very invested in the situation. Talk to Me is about, this is not about Talk to Me, this is about Bring Her Back. But they only have 2 movies. So, if you're not familiar, this is like auteur theory.
You got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah. But that's a movie about this like disembodied hand or disembodied arm that some teen just like has. Like got it from, I forget where, mysterious urban legend here. And basically, if you grab the arm, you are allowing grab the hand, you are allowing yourself to be entered and possessed by a spirit from beyond the grave, but you don't know what spirit you're going to get. So it's kind of like a Ouija board. I would personally not grab the hand. That is like a bad idea. But teenagers at parties with alcohol and cell phones, like they want to do that shit.
Also, if they didn't, that wouldn't be a movie. So
exactly, it wouldn't be a movie if you simply did not grab the hand. That would be a good letterbox review. And Talk to Me is actually about trauma, quote unquote. But I think that I was not as swept up in like the thematics of it as I was in the form and the craft of it. And their new movie, to talk about the thing that's actually relevant, Bring Her Back. They are once again telling a story about trauma. Specifically, this is about 3 children who all live under the purview of a foster mother, played by Sally Hawkins in what I think is Sally Hawkins' first horror role, which was what got me interested in it, because I do have a minor crush on Sally Hawkins. And,
Right.
I think she's a great actress and have loved a lot of her movies. I think that the idea of Sally Hawkins in a horror movie is, I'm just like curious to see what she can do with that. And she is a pro. She is very freaky in this movie, and in some ways that like at first seem somewhat understated, but in a way that you immediately recognize like, oh, there's something off about this lady. Like there's an early moment where she's measuring her 3 foster children and like marking on the wall like how tall they are at a various age, and she just like bops one of these kids on the head with a ruler in a way that is just like a little bit too hard, like just enough for you to be like, what the fuck, did she really just do that? But not enough to like draw attention and like actually have the other kids confront her about it, right? And I kind of wish the movie stayed in that mode for longer, more for it to be more about this subtle, understated abuse that happens in domestic situations where, one person is very good at hiding the fact that they are an abuser, or like the manipulative ways that they treat people. But this is like a full-on like gore porn fest. It is very, very violent. Like maybe one of the most violent movies I have seen. Like I'm trying to think of other like ultra violent movies I would put in this category, and I'm thinking of like Martyrs and Antichrist, like really, really violent movies. And the thing that makes this violence cut really deeply is that it is almost exclusively inflicted upon children. Like this, I'll just go ahead and say I did not like this movie at all. And I can't genuinely tell if it has to do with the quality of this movie or just how uncomfortable I was watching the amount of violence this movie heaps upon children. And like you see it very closely. And if you are a squeamish horror movie person, I think you should just like steer really clear of this movie. If you want a sense of like what we're talking about here in terms of like extreme violence towards children, I'm just going to give one example. Feel free to skip over this if you're an easily upset person about this kind of thing. But there is a scene in which a child like bites and continually tries to chew on a knife, like a kitchen knife. And you see that incredibly up close. You see like it in his like gums, like rearranging his teeth and shit. It is incredibly upsetting to look at. I have wished that I could scrub the image from my mind since I saw it. And the movie is just kind of like chock full of stuff like that. I wouldn't say that most of it is on that level, but like I was real tired of watching awful shit happen to children by the end of this movie. And
I don't like that.
Yeah. Unpleasant. And it tries to be like a meaningful, moving, emotional story about, these children's trauma because they were abused, or one of them was abused by his father and is now like witnessing abuse in this other household and getting framed for said abuse. But I don't really think that these directors are really doing all that much with the trauma stuff, to be real. I kind of feel like they're gore hounds, or they're just out to make the scariest movie possible. And it's about trauma or it's about abuse is like a really good way of like framing the meaningfulness of a movie full of violent things happening to people, right? I don't think these movies are particularly like nuanced or meaningful in terms of how they're discussing abuse. It feels like it is handled kind of flippantly and like for shock value. And one of my friends, Cam, friend of the podcast, when we left the movie theater, patron Cam, yeah, we left the movie theater. He was talking about how like he was really hard on Hereditary back when it came out, but that this movie made him appreciate Hereditary more because of like how seriously that movie took the kind of abuse and trauma and like death of a child that narrative involves. And this one is just like, wouldn't it be fucked up if you saw all this shit happen? And what makes it worse for me is that this movie ends, and this is a spoiler, I guess. Sorry. Movie sucks, in my opinion. But this movie ends the exact same way that Talk to Me does, which is like the central character is so like irredeemably fucked up, they have no choice but to commit suicide. And I don't really like that ending once, it regardless. Like that's just like a kind of way for a movie to end that doesn't sit right with me. I think that it could be done well, but generally, maybe it's just my own personal hangups. I think that it can be kind of a cop-out ending for a story, and could glamorize suicide in the eyes of a suicidal watcher in a way that doesn't feel good to me. But this movie ends the exact same way, and I'm just like, now I'm mad not for those sort of like emotional personal reasons, but just kind of like because it's lazy. Like, write a new ending, write a new story, give me a new movie that is not just horrible things happen to people and then they have to kill themselves at the end.
Did you say at the beginning who distributed this?
I believe this is an A24 picture, but let me double check. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I imagine they will be doing more things with A24, real A24 horror movie coded directors. They currently have a Talk to Me in production, which I think people should do more of that kind of naming.
No way to distinguish between those two movies unless you're seeing them written out.
You have to say Talk to Me. Yeah.
But there's also Talk to Me, the prequel.
There's the Talk to Me prequel. So, like, right. I might hate that movie by the time that we're done with it. But right now, I think that movie is pretty dang good. And this movie was just, like, way over the line for me in a way that I couldn't possibly enjoy it. Yeah. That's me. That's my Bring Her Back review.
Nice. I'm just going to, since we had a big tease, I'm not going to talk long about Night Moves. Night Moves 1975, starring Gene Hackman, rest in peace. It slaps, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
It slaps.
I should see it. I haven't seen it.
Like Gene Hackman, amazing. Grimy LA and Florida Keys, amazing. Ending of this movie, like 15 out of 10. Yeah. Night Moves undefeated in terms of title movies that are titled Night Moves between this one and Kelly Reichardt's Night Moves.
Just straight fire.
They should make a third movie that's KNIGHT.
That's what the Elden Ring movie is going to be called.
Situation.
That's Night Moves, directed by Alec Garland.
Yeah,
Alex Garland. Well, hopefully everybody somewhat enjoyed or whatever the first installment of movies we saw this month. If
you enjoyed this at least $1 worth, if you would pay $1 to hear this again next month, go to patreon.com/cinematary and sign up for the $1 level. And
also,
it's not like
the podcast longer. You should pay more money so that she can quit her job.
That's true. We need to start that really high tier for this. Yeah.
In all transparency, we use the money, we call it through the entire year, and then I use it to pay for the website.
Yeah, it's really just for keeping the hamster wheel spinning here.
Yeah, like we use it for the website, so you have the archive and you have the rain, and you have the website. We can go to TIFF, which we just applied for this year. So like that's what we use it for.
Mm-hmm.
As Andrew said early on, we don't want your money. We just we want to keep the site going.
True.
And maybe to get Grace out of 3 of her jobs. I don't know. Yeah. Until next month. See ya.
Next month for Patreon people, but everybody else, we'll see you in maybe several months for internet movies. Hope you tune in for it.